these models over. This is the existing 8 megapixel powered by dark or dark fighter model, should I say. 180-degree image, 4 lenses, so 4 2 megapixel lenses stitched together in one view via the camera. It only takes up one channel on the NVR, and you can see it's a very, very good image, and they've become very, very popular for public space monitoring, stadiums, shopping malls, that kind of environment. This one takes it to another level, so bear that in mind. We're going to take a snapshot of that image there, so we'll keep this one as a reference. Bear that in mind, and when you come back, you'll see the quality of the new one. Okay, welcome back. So I have fitted the Panorama outside now. For those of you that want to know, that is the full model number. DS-2CD6984G0-IHS, and there are some other connotations available, but that is the baseline model. That is the latest firmware as of today, but always check if there is a later firmware available. There isn't so far. Okay, straight into it. So a couple of things we need to look at is, let me just find the image stitching menu. You'll see in the panel view now there is an image stitch menu, and there's 4 separate operating modes. Panorama plus EPTZ, and you can choose the amount of channels that are available in the EPTZ. Panorama, which is straight 180. Original, which is the 4 images separated, and divided panorama. We can also set the best stitching distance in meterage. So the car park for us is about 30 meters to the fence line from the fitment of the camera, but so we will leave that as 30 meters. But you can adjust that as necessary, so you can understand the different operating modes. Panorama plus EPTZ, if I go into live view, what that means is in the current format, I'll get 1 8 megapixel and 5 EPTZ. So if I press play, I double click on one, that is the 180-degree view, but it's only an 8 megapixel. Still a fantastically good image. So you could leave it in that mode. I'll go back, but the EPTZs I can split and then back around the image to suit. So that's operating mode 1. So I can manipulate these around and put them where needed and even zoom in if needed. But of course, the electronic PTZs. So you only get a proportion of the resolution of the main PTZ. It's 32 megapixel, take away 8, and then these are the rest by these 5. If I go back into configuration, now Jake's going to have to do some editing on this, I think, because every time I choose a different operating mode, the camera will reboot. There's one thing to note on here, and please pay attention to this. If I want to add this as a 32 megapixel stream, then I need a super NVR with the special firmware. So the special firmware will allow 1 32 megapixel image to be added to the super NVR, so 1 per super NVR, or I can make it Panorama plus EPTZ or split them into 4 times 8 megapixel images and add them as 4 channels. But if I want to use it as a 32 megapixel device natively, then I need a special firmware for the Super NVR. They are making a firmware that will allow you to add 1 to a standard I-series, but as of yet, it's not finished. So I can adjust the EPTZs as well. So if I click that and click save, it'll say, do I want to reboot the unit? So I'll click yes, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, you can see there, it is now a 1080p panoramic, so just 1, so I've adjusted it to 1, and obviously I've still got the 8 megapixel image there, and someone's just turned up. So yeah, it doesn't actually make the resolution of the panoramic any better, but it just reduces the amount of channels that you can add to an NVR, neatens it up. So that's the amount of EPTZs that we adjust, and so that's that. I'm going to go and quickly reboot this now. So if we go to configuration, we're going to change it, and just so you know, camera 1, that's 8 megapixel, camera 2, 10 megapixel, 1080p. Too early in the morning. I need more coffee. For those of you that aren't in the UK and haven't seen the show Peaky Blinders, I urge you to watch it. One of the best shows ever produced. So now we're going to look at the panorama view. Leave it as 3, the default for now. So I'll reboot that. Yes. And we'll see what that looks like. Okay, welcome back. So it has rebooted. We'll quickly go and show you. It's now in the 32 megapixel mode, so I set it. There is no substream when it's in main, the fullest resolution, 32 megabits. So you set it to the fullest resolution, 25 frames a second, and H.265. we'll make that 15 frames a second. We don't need it real time, or at least 25 anyway. So back in the system, image stitching under Panorama, you can see encoder track is recommended that we use the encoder track free, but there are some settings that aren't available when you do that. As a side note, here's the image stitching notes about what the video output modes do, what the encoder track is, and the best stitching distance. You can pause the screen and take a screenshot of that yourself, or just read it at your own leisure. So I'm going to clear that down. We don't need that anymore. So, because the web browser inherently isn't really going to support a 32 megapixel image, I've actually loaded IVMS 4200. I've added the device here. So just to show you, it's there, it's added. And let's see what that looks like. It's now just gone 7:30 in the morning, so the performance is really is very good, and you can see clearly in the writing. Say that's 30 odd meters away, but you can see there it's a very, very good image indeed. Now, if we come out of that and we go into digital zoom, draw a box, and you can see I can just about make my registration out there. Again, I can go in further, but considering the distance away from that vehicle, which is that's going to be 20 meters away, I'm still pleased with the performance of that. Close that down, and now we can go to original or divided panorama. So if I select original mode and click save, do you want to reboot? Yes. So we'll see you in a minute. Okay, so it's rebooted. We're in original mode now. So that gives us 4 8 megapixel images. Go to video and audio. You can see I've set it to 8 megapixel, 15 frames a second, H.265 plus on, and there's 4 of them. I've done the same to all 4. If I go back to IMS 4200, you can see if I double click on the Panorama folder, you can see 4 8 megapixel images. So again, double click on one. Still a fantastic image at 8 megapixel. If I link them to a view like that, you can see they're not stitched correctly. They are 4 separate images unstitched, but that is that operating mode. That is the most popular one because you don't need custom firmware on the NVR, so you still get the use of a fantastic 8 megapixel image, but you don't have the stitching. Okay, welcome back again for the final one. So we've now rebooted it. It's in divided panorama. So again, video and audio, you get 4 images, 8 megapixel, no substream. Again, just the mainstream. 12 frames a second, H.265. And I've adjusted all of them to be the same. In fact, let's put that one as 15. So it's a fair thing. Wait for that to save. So the difference with this one is it's a 32 megapixel image divided into 4. Not like the last mode where there was 4 separate images. You'll see if I open up IMS 4200 and double click on there, you get the panoramic view in 4 separate images. So on a video wall, let me just open that up. On a video wall, that will present itself in a much, much better way. So it is a stitched image divided into 4 8 megapixel streams. So again, 4 channels on your, but it's not as big as a 32 megapixel channel. That is absolutely fantastic. Will work very well in a video wall or a decoder, etc. However, that. But again, it's like looking out of a window. Again, if that's what you want to use, fantastic. That is the 4th and final operating mode. Do love it. Again, if I come out of there, view any of those video panes independently, and they still have the digital zoom if required. Again, the further away, the harder it is to view. So hopefully you'll find that beneficial. For me, it's all about the 32 megapixel stitched image. It's just absolutely fantastic, but granted, not everybody can use it in that mode because of the hardware you have to put behind it to accept that. So I'm going to reboot it one more time, and side by side we'll see the 8 megapixel, what it was to what it is on 32 megapixel. Okay, so this is the 180 degree 8 megapixel panel view. Of course, it was slightly earlier, so it was still a little bit dark when I changed it. But again, fantastic image. Nothing wrong with this device. Very, very popular indeed. And this is the 32 megapixel image natively in one image. So absolutely fantastic. You can see the level of detail, brick paving is absolutely mind-blowing. And we do get